Gentlemen, back again for another episode. Thank you very much for being here. Much appreciated.
Thank you.
Yes, cheers.
Yeah, really enjoyed our previous chats. I'm sure we're going to have another good one now. Wanted to start with a specific topic which I've had in mind for a while. Again, just throwing out another question, probably mostly in your direction to begin with, as you're very much in charge of programs and managing gymnasts. It's about the topic of athletes leaving the club. And the specific question is, under what circumstances do we let athletes go and come back? Mm-hmm. And is that actually something that you've ever explored? And the reason why it's of interest to me, and I've seen other people kind of ask this question as well in different forums and online.
Yeah.
Is it acceptable? Is it a right thing to do? Should we do that? But I think there's a lot of context involved in it. Have you ever had that scenario when someone's gone to another club and come back to the club again?
First of all, moving to South Essex was quite a revolutionary view on this, because every club I'd worked at previously was like, once you're gone, you're gone.
Right.
Or if, the old school way of if you're caught trialing somewhere else, then I'm afraid the door's not open for you, that kind of thing. But South Essex runs on a very open door policy. If it's working and we're providing what you need, then you're here, you stay.
Yeah.
If we start to go in different directions, then the door's always open. So if you go away, then you're more than welcome to come back if the grass isn't greener or whatever the case may be. So from that aspect, it's principally sound.
Yeah.
But I don't think we've had a situation where it's actually played out like that.
Okay, yeah.
Not that I can think of off the top of my head. Now we've had athletes go for various reasons.
Every club has, yeah.
Of course.
But yeah, I can't think of a particular.
Mm-hmm. Same for you, Jackson?
Same, yeah. Early on in my career at Pegasus, where I took over the women's program, it would have been a hard no.
Okay.
Yeah, so ego driven from my perspective. Mm-hmm. No, once you're gone, there's clearly something that you're not believing in what I'm providing.
Right.
It's all about, I'm clearly not good enough for you, but then that switched up quickly.
Okay.
And I have had athletes go and then come back.
Yep.
Yeah, and we're the same. We've open door policy, and now at the MEPA where I am now, it's very open door policy. Yeah, obviously amazing with that.
Yeah.
Always has the conversation, says, by all means, if you feel as though for whatever reason we're not giving you what you need,
right,
you're only going to know that by going to see.
That's
way to view it. Yeah. And now I'm like, totally, completely.
It makes sense to me to have quite a fluid transition between clubs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we've had coaches as well.
Yeah, I mean, that, I think part of the problem has come in the past is when you coach an athlete, you spend a lot of time with them, there's an element, I've done all that work.
Emotional investment.
There's a lot of investment there. However, in the same sense, we've been talking about how we mature, we change throughout the years. That's going to happen to the athlete. Now, who's to say that you're not going to grow apart for part of your time together, or you're going to not get on? Doesn't mean you can't get on, but if you need to have time apart, it's healthy, I think, the potential of that being the case. Yeah. But I just don't think many clubs, directors buy into that idea, though. I'm not quite sure. I don't know if it's a historic thing, or like you mentioned there, whether there's bruised egos that get involved, or people find it offensive because it's their business. And because it makes so much sense to me to just assist. Well, what I have done even in the past, actually, when I was at Pinewood, I had an athlete that moved to us, and she did fantastic, very, very talented, but she outgrew me as a coach.
Right.
And I took her for her trial at Heathrow, and I allowed that to play out and did the session with her, and she went there.
Yeah. Which is, I mean, I've not heard of that ever happening. So you were basically supporting the athlete's transition to potentially another club, and you took her. Yeah. Because normally it's a case of like, I'm going to go behind closed doors.
Which is, but I lived through that. And anytime something goes on with an athlete, like I'd rather you tell me that the relationship's breaking down or we're not providing the service you want, because I probably know more clubs than you know. I'm definitely on a better terms with coaches because I know them as friends or colleagues. I could help find the right place for you.
Yeah. And that's being very athlete-centered and thinking about the athlete before the needs of yourself or the club, which is difficult. I mean, especially if you've invested, 10 years. And this is why I think there's context, because we're assuming here that this is an amicable relationship. That they've come to you and they basically said, we're not sure our needs are getting met. How many times does that happen versus there's a fallout and people have gone elsewhere, which is probably what happens more, isn't it?
Yeah, where are the lines blurred?
Yeah, exactly. Of now
tough.
actually behaviour and people's attitudes and behaviours and what's been said. There's hurt feelings involved in this now. You know, someone might have said something online or gossip or toxic behaviour. Now you've got the question of like, do we still have that same open door policy? Because we're open to you on our terms, which is that, you know, you've come here to converse and to talk about this, but there is a threshold of how much people should accept. Because ultimately a gym should be a happy place filled with people that are in alignment. They, you know, are part of a positive culture. And so you might not want to re-welcome someone back into the environment that doesn't fit into that.
Was it a culture breach?
Yeah,
that's different.
That's a great way of saying it. Is it a breach of culture, and that's why someone's left, basically? But there's been examples where they've come back, and then they've gone, you know what, I'm sorry, I'm going to hold my hands up here that I didn't realise how much you guys were doing, and we would like to come back.
I would say I need to see some commitment now. We've had that conversation. You can't now stay with me, like you said, for another period of time where it's all brilliant.
Yeah.
And then us hit another hurdle, because we will hit another hurdle. And then you go again. Because I don't think I could then accept you back again.
It's not a dip in and out.
We can't just keep doing this for the
course.
sake of consistency. And,
Sure.
Yeah. And then alternatively, what am I not doing if this keeps happening?
Yeah.
It's clear. I know that I'm not the right coach for everybody. That was one of the many leaves that I've turned in my career. I like to think that I can be.
So it's a tough realization when the penny drops.
I
that
know
you're like,
I'm not.
Actually, we might not be compatible.
Some people need more. Whatever it is. And I'm fine with that. It's okay. If that's the conversation, then no problem.
Totally get that. You're going to add something there, Dan?
Yeah, I think it's amazing. I think it's the self-awareness piece, isn't it? So like you said, like you understand that actually, you can't get on with everyone. Maybe this just isn't the right fit. It's nothing to do with the athlete. It's nothing to do with you. It's nothing to, like, maybe this is just not the right fit. You don't fit into our culture. And like you said, the one like taking to a trial, I've not heard of that. I think
that's phenomenal.
I think that's awesome. That's almost like viewing it as just being part of the journey, isn't it?
Yeah.
So we've got you to this point, and I'm happy to see you into the next stage, which is, I've had a couple of times like that where people have gone to clubs and you feel, initially when I was a younger coach, I used to see it as lost work, lost time, lost investment, lost your best player. But like you said, as time went by, you kind of see it as like, actually, I've done my bit. Maybe it's time for someone else
the
to do it now.
takes that work with them.
They
don't just, it doesn't just go out the door, does it?
It's like
your part of the journey.
Yeah, and then actually I've done my bit, because actually I don't work in a professional environment. I was working in a university setting. So actually you're better suited to that environment now.
This is where I think that the relationship is so important between parent and club, parent and coach, because if not enough relationship equity has been built, if you don't have that reservoir of trust and connection, then you don't have. So if you have built enough relationship equity, let's say that you've made loads of deposits, you've got a great relationship there, then leaving the club is always like a last resort. There's lots of interventions that happen on the way. There's conversations, there's discussion with athlete and parent, there's strategies, and then eventually you go, you know what, this isn't working. If you don't have that relationship equity, you skip all of that and you go straight from, we're out of here. And you don't, and so I talk a lot about my barber, right? So it took me ages to find a barber that I could trust, because I was going into lots of different barbers. No jokes about my hair, please. But did you get a refund?
And I still haven't.
I can hear it.
It'd be nice when it's finished.
But a few of them, I was going in, and I had a different person cut my hair every time I was there. It came out, some were good, some were bad, and eventually I found a barber that I could trust. His name's Freddie. You might even watch this. And I spend more time with Freddie than I do my friends and family. I'm there every week for an hour. We chat about all sorts. I know him really well now. I like to think he knows me quite well. And we've built so much relationship that if he did give me a bad haircut now, I wouldn't just up and leave, because he's given me 30 good ones. Like, just by numbers, at some point there's going to be a one that's maybe a slightly bit off or he's missed something. But I'm not going to look for another one. And if a cheaper or barber closer to my house opened up, I would never even consider not going to see Freddie, because we've got that relationship equity. And I think that's what clubs need to do with the parents, is bring the parent closer to them, so that when you do hit these snags, you can, for the most part, if there's not a huge cultural breach, you can work through them.
I do absolutely agree. And that But again, that's the ideal model, and I think, but most of these situations come about because they're not ideal.
Yeah.
Or
not an ideal fit.
They're not an ideal fit, perhaps.
Yes.
But they've stayed for a long time, or you just find yourself in a situation where, at the end of the day, we mentioned earlier, we're always going to make mistakes. Mm-hmm. You're always doing your best, but you can't help but trip up along the way.
Of course.
A parent's child is their treasure, it's their prized possession. There is always going to be a huge emotional reaction or investment to what is delivered to them or isn't delivered to them in our coaching realms. Yeah. But I find that there's very little forgiveness for a mistake by a coach, whether that's incorrect intervention, whether that's something that's gone wrong at a competition. Yeah. However, and I can only use it as an example because I'm not a parent yet, but, and I think we've discussed this before, all the way along the path of learning to be a parent, you're making mistakes all the time, but no one crucifies you for it because you're just learning to be a better parent. But it feels like at times that the hiccups that are made as a coach, like, right, that's a huge red flag, or that's not acceptable. When I don't actually know any coach that does any of those things intentionally. Yeah. No. But they lead to poor relationships. And because you're not supposed to be friends per se with a parent, it's hard to mend those relationships. And it's not a professional relationship as such, because, well, it is, I guess, to agree, but not in the sense that you're a colleague with someone and you can work it out.
It's like a working relationship, isn't it?
It's almost like the parent's the client.
Yeah.
And there's this middle person, the gymnast, the athlete. Yeah. That's a strange,
It's different.
Very strange.
It's really, really hard to navigate. And I've always felt very comfortable in any parental meeting situation. I actually like those interactions. That's not to say that I haven't had some horrific ones that are probably sometimes caused on my reactions in those moments, but also their reactions. How you tread that water, it's really, really tricky. Yeah. Really difficult. Definitely, by far, some of the most testing moments in my coaching career.
It comes down to experience again, doesn't it? Like we said before, because like you said, you've had some lovely ones and some horrendous ones.
Yeah. But even under the experience umbrella, some of the things that I've experienced, no experience would have
dealt with that.
Got me to even remotely know how to deal with those situations. I've just had to really rely on the person that I am rather than the coach to get through that. Really reflect on how on earth have we got to this point when I felt I was doing this and delivering that? Like, where has it gone that wrong to lead us to this situation? And ultimately that's led to athletes going elsewhere with probably no chance of them ever coming back, where the door is always open. And that's tough because as a person, I think I've only ever really fallen out with one friend like properly and not spoken to them. But then within a year, we rekindled that. Maybe one other person I haven't, but it's in my nature to fix things. I'm a fixer. I like to think of myself like that. That's really hard to do with a parent.
Yeah.
It's an odd relationship.
And it's really tough to not be emotional about it all, because if we are spending 20 hours a week plus with anyone, whether it's a child or an adult, there is always going to be that connection. It's impossible to coach effectively and be sterile from that. I think, if you are non-emotional about that relationship, then you are not coaching effectively, I don't think. So it's really difficult, which is why it hurts so much when athletes that you have spent a lot of time with, you could call that invested time, but spent a lot of time with, and you've helped develop them, you're fond of them, you care for them, you want them to succeed. And then when they leave, that does leave a void, doesn't it? There is a feeling of loss, essentially, this person was here and now they're not. I guess irrespective of some of the circumstances on some occasions, because I'm sure you guys, particularly yourselves, are more club-based and have been in your careers than I have, but there are cases when it's nothing to do with the gymnast, it's purely to do with the parent coach or parent club relationship. And then it's
hard not to be friends with these people as well. Like you said earlier, I see them more than I see my real family and friends. I see them every day, and yet you have to maintain a working relationship. I don't think it's possible to really draw those lines.
Yeah.
Keep trying, but it's tough.
Yeah, it's understanding where those boundaries and barriers are. But again, it comes back
I've done it
to
multiple times.
you can't be unemotional. You need to be at times. It's very difficult to do so. Like decision making, you've got to be unemotional about it. But this is where like again, transparency, clarity on your philosophies, your mission as a club, which direction you're heading is important, because you want to have these conversations as early on with potential members so that you can say, look, this is what we're all about. This is how we coach. These are the philosophies. If you're not on board with this or you've got concerns, we need to talk about it now, because whilst your kid's only doing 5 hours a week, it's not going to have a massive impact. But if they ever get to the stage of doing 15, 18, 20, this stuff's really going to matter. And we want you to still be comfortable here. And so like having the upfront conversation early. And I think a lot of the objections I've heard from some of my clients and things is that, but she's really talented. So they'll keep an athlete in the program that doesn't fit for them because they have got this talent and what it could do for the club, and it's just exciting journey to be part of. And like, I get it, but then you've got to think, right, am I putting our philosophies and values first?
It can be poisonous, can't it?
Yeah, how much are we going to flex to the competency of an athlete?
Yeah, and it's learning the people so it's learning the parental relationships as quickly as possible as well, because you don't want to be selling an empty dream that they might latch onto after your very first conversation, but it's something it's part of your spiel, it's part of your, this is gymnastics, this is where we go, this is how we could go. But if that's what they latch onto right at the very beginning, and you don't then end up being the person that delivers that, and or you've not then had those interactions along the way, you've set yourself up to fail right from day dot.
False expectation.
Bringing it back to, what is elite, being an elite performer. Are they an elite performer when they walk through the door, or are you putting them on an elite pathway? Or are you just going to develop them or teach them gymnastics and see where it goes? Clarity is key, and
communicating what that is.
How you go about communicating that is really important. I have there used to be a phrase thrown around when I first started coaching that quite often was delivered to parents was, if you don't hear anything, that's great news. Almost keeping them at arm's length outside the door, which in retrospect is so unhealthy, because in theory, really, you were only ever bringing them in to tell them bad news. Which wasn't fostering a great relationship anyway.
No, you're right.
Then it was problem. Now I'm much warmer. Well, from learning those scenarios, I'm much more willing and warmer to have group conversations, individual catch-ups,
proactive stuff.
Still not always at the right time. Sometimes still post an event, but still the attempt is there to make it better.
And just in the nature of the fact that we are spending so much time with these people anyway, that like you've said multiple times, there's going to be fallouts, so there's going to be hiccups. And again, it's almost like being upfront about that and just say, just so you know, at some point in the journey, we're going to have some really difficult conversations. At some point, your kid's probably going to have a niggle or an injury, which knocks them out for a bit. At some point, they're going to come home and probably want to quit. They're going to have tears. They're going to be scared of something in the gym. They're going to have terrible competitions. So just so you know, I'm just being completely upfront, that is a realistic expectation. By the way, they're also going to have great fun. We're going to be really social. They're going to have great competitions. They're going to feel success.
Achieve things.
They're going to achieve things. They're going to have the most amazing memories. We're going to build them as a human. But if you're not accepting of both of those happening in tandem at different times, then we need to make sure that we're a right fit. And if you're going to support us, you need to support us when they come home tearful, having a bad day and having made mistakes, as much as when they've just won a really good competition, because this is part of the journey. And I think that proactiveness and that education and that transparency and honesty is just super, super important.
It's really, it comes back to trust again. It's really hard to get someone to trust you that you've not known for a long time, or they're not your friend, or in theory you're meant to be respectful of the distance. You're meant to keep, the professional distance. You're meant to keep with the parents and stuff nowadays, because that's ultimately, because you're going to hit probably many more hiccups than successes along the way. But to keep, because you have to, but to keep coming back and saying, please trust the process. We're doing right. We're doing right by such and such. This is the direction we're going, and having that from a stranger, ultimately.
That's tough, yeah. I'm about to spend upwards of, say, 15, 20 hours with your daughter or son.
You don't know
You
me.
don't know me.
You don't know.
So just assume I know what I'm doing. Like, that's crazy, actually, when you put it into that perspective.
I do empathise with parents for that. And if I'm honest, I don't have children, as you know, but if I did, I would be wanting to know like what language is being used
and
here.
Then how much can you let them know before it goes into the realms of you actually are becoming a detriment to what I'm doing with them in the gym? This conversation has come up multiple times. Parents do typically want to know more.
Sure.
And I'm not anti that.
Yeah.
But to a technical degree, that can be very dangerous.
For the gymnastics specific stuff.
Even the wonderful thing about having everything out there on social media is you can see it, you can be excited by it, you can be inspired by it, but there's also huge negative things there that the parents that don't necessarily understand the sport obviously get the question, I've seen so-and-so doing this, and this, why aren't we doing that and that? Yeah. Or, I've seen the new rules are out for this level. Yeah. Are we doing that, or are you following those rules? All those things
rules are available for people to go, that's crazy.
Yeah. I think that's where your clarity of message comes in, doesn't it? Of just like if you have Stonewall clarity within what you're doing, then it can remove that outside noise, right? So, so maybe doing that at another club, a gymnast of a certain level. However, here we're doing X, Y, and Z because it gets us this, and this is what we're driving and striving towards. Because, like you said, if you're a parent and you push around and you don't see that much clarity straight away, it's just like you don't question it straight away, but you're like, this person is spending all this time with my child. I've sort of asked a couple of questions that we can't really answer succinctly. It's like, okay, well, let's see how this goes. Straight away, where if you have clarity, it's like, oh, wow, ask the question, go and answer. Really clear, makes sense. And then helps you go back in. I'm really fortunate because I don't have to do that. I'm more of an observer of it, really. But I think it's supremely difficult part of your job on top of being a coach of technical skills and trying to develop a culture within a team as well as that. But I think if you don't have that piece, you don't have the other piece, right? It's absolutely fundamental.
It's from day dot, isn't it? Like you said, from day dot, you have this conversation, and we spoke about it earlier. This isn't to scare you guys, but actually it is a little bit. And the money and the everything that goes alongside this, you know what you're signing up for.
It's clear.
Because it only gets worse from here. Yeah. So if it's scaring you now, then you need to have that conversation with yourself. And maybe
it's very demanding for the parents, isn't it, as well as the child. So.
Oh, yeah.
Short interruption. If you're a head coach, club owner, manager, or leader, check out our high performance health check for a free insight into how well your club's operating within our 6-category framework. Head to ruddock.com/health check to take our 10-minute assessment. We'll send you the results straight to your inbox. Back to the episode.
It's a journey. It's whether people are in it for the journey or just the destination, of course. And it's that understanding and managing expectations of, in order to reach the destination, this is what the journey realistically looks like. Yeah. I just don't think you can't build trust without proximity. So you can't build trust without bringing the parents closer. But you're absolutely right in, again, establishing with clarity, like what are the roles that are at play here. So I'm not going to cross over into a parent role. So these are the things that I won't do because that's your area and it's not my place to try and delve into that. Equally, I do have an expectation of like where your role as a parent ceases or stops in terms of breaching into coaching. Yeah. So let's be really clear on that. And of course, the athlete's got their own sort of boundaries around what their role is in that as well. So everyone's got very specific roles. We don't want to bleed into each other's. But if we've got concerns, we'll have conversations. I think that's respect. But again, and you mentioned, like, it's not the parents' world. Like, they don't know gymnastics. No. So, and we can't expect them to know gymnastics. They will never know gymnastics like we do. No. But we've got two options. We either leave them to their own devices and they will explore, research, good or bad. Or we go, well, you know what? Like, rather than you trying to find this information elsewhere and maybe going down lines that are a bit misleading, why don't we just meet up once a month? Yeah. We'll answer all your questions that you've got in one hit. So it's only going to take about 45 minutes of our time every month. All your questions will be answered. And then if you've got anything that pops up in between those chats, here's my diary. You can book a 10-minute slot. All right. And that way you've got your open door policy, but you've got that proactive opportunity for people to say, here we are. We've got nothing to hide.
Yeah, brilliant.
We've got no unwritten rules. So like
Before
anything,
you go to YouTube or something,
yeah,
just
like,
come to me first, and then
come to us,
Yeah.
and we'll give you the straight answer. If we can't give you the straight answer straight away, we'll find out for you. At least you know then how we feel about things.
Yeah.
Because there are a million different approaches. Every club's got different philosophies and strategies to try and get to the same destination. But just so you understand, this is how we're doing it.
This is our route.
Yeah, and so like for clubs that are trying to take a slower, more patient approach, we talked about this in another episode, it can be quite difficult if they've got a competitive club down the road from them that has the opposite approach,
Yeah.
which is that they're going to go really fast and hard straight away. They're going to go like fifth gear immediately from age 7 years old. So we're doing high volume training. They're teaching a lot of skills. And as a result of that, they'll probably be winning competitions in the region or the local area. So that to a parent looks like, well, hang on, they're better.
Yeah.
They're 9 years old, they're winning everything, or 8 years old, they're winning everything. And you're basically saying to your own group of parents or this slow approaching club, it's like saying, well, no, we're going to take it easy. We're going to go slow. And because of that, they're further down in the rankings. Now, these are young kids, which means your parent and coach club relationship is very fresh.
Yeah.
How much relationship equity have you got in that? How much have you been able to build? Not that much over that time. And you got to get them to trust your vision and philosophy as a club, which is probably a better one. Which is, we know, it doesn't matter if you win medals at 8 years old. It's got almost nothing to do with their chance of competing on the world
There's
stage.
very little correlation.
Very little
between
correlation. Yeah, I mean, there are exceptions, of course, but the vast majority of kids that stand on the podium at 8, 9, and 10 years old don't ever go on to being a senior athlete. And like, we need to make sure that people understand that.
Yeah.
But then also, they might never.
Yes, of course. Wherever they are and how patient you are, it doesn't matter, because if they haven't got it, they haven't got it. Like me and my recreational rules. I didn't have it.
Yeah. The stars do have to align.
They have to align. Yeah, but I also empathise that there are many circumstances where kids should move.
Yeah.
And this is why it's a minefield for parents, because like maybe the coaching isn't up to par and it's not up to scratch for all sorts of reasons, whether it is technical or cultural, whatever that might be. Some parents are just looking for the right place for their child to be. It is difficult.
You can't possibly know that unless you go and see it.
Ask questions.
Ask questions.
Fine.
And
Be inquisitive.
that's it. It's difficult. I do think it's difficult. But ultimately, I believe relationships are key. And if you're not investing in it, then you're going to suffer. Which comes back to the question, or the comment from the other episode, which was lead coaches end up with less time coaching because these are the things that are truly important to the success of their program, right? So, and again, you'll know this, how many conversations you have in a week with staff, with parents, with planning, all the non-coaching things which are impacting your program. Yet you're a phenomenal high-performance coach, and yet your coaching will be diluted as a result of all your other expectations and responsibilities.
Yeah.
So it's difficult to navigate.
Yeah. You have that in strength and conditioning as well. So you have people striving to have lead roles, head roles, and then they get there and they actually actualize. Like the amount of coaching you're doing is so minimal because you're having to drive the direction, have conversation with coaches, deliver on projects.
Administration stuff.
Yeah. You're managing upwards and across and down.
Yeah.
And it's like an acceptance, but everyone, I think, sees it as like, oh, when I'm head, I'll be doing X. Like, you're not doing as much coaching as you probably think. And if you are doing coaching, it's always with something in the back of your mind, I can imagine. So even on a technical level, I can imagine that's almost tenfold, because it's like you're coaching, but then you're also thinking like about other things that you've got to be doing as part of your role. It's actually part of your role as well. So
I'm 50% of the coach that I can be or should be in the gym when the workload outside is big or heavy. And you try really hard not to bring it in the gym.
Yeah.
But it's almost impossible not to.
It's the human aspect of coaching, isn't it? It's like you can't just go, okay, so now I'm coach, not head.
But it's also really because of the age band, which I teach or we teach as well. That you can't come in the gym and just say, I'm having a bad day today, guys.
Yeah, of course,
It's not their business to have to carry your load.
They feed off your energy at that age, don't they?
Yeah, exactly. But
and your confidence.
That also being said, exactly that point, but they're going to feed off the energy they're bringing. If the energy's low, then it's going to be...
I can attest to that being a practice that you can use, though, maybe with more senior athletes, because I've done that.
Well,
depending on age, right?
Absolutely. And having
Sorry,
worked,
can I just is that by saying that
Come
I'm not
into
having
the
a
gym
great day
and
today?
think,
Or
girls, I'm going to be totally honest, today was not good.
Okay.
And I feel as though my energy levels aren't going to reflect what they normally would. So
Yeah.
I might need a bit more from you today.
Yeah, yeah.
Typically, they love that.
having
They buy
worked,
into that.
yeah, and to be, they end up being some of the most productive days because they actually pull you through.
They bring you up.
And that has been that middle age, particularly teenagers, young teenagers,
Yeah, the babies.
and then the baby. Yeah,
They don't understand.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah, they need you on. They need you there.
And actually, typically, they're very good at that anyway, indirectly, aren't they? They only have to give you a bit of excitement, and you're like, okay, I'm back again.
Yeah, you're right about that. Just quite
Jumping back
infectious.
a little bit to the parent thing, do you think relationships can be mended with gymnastics parents from if a gymnast parent relationship deteriorates? And the reason I ask is one, from experience, and two, you'd normally fix a relationship because you get to spend time with that person. And that time that you always have is
gone,
limited.
then.
And or if it's very easy for them if the relationship deteriorates to not be very present, and then it makes meeting more like, is that something that, because we've all established it's crucial, it's a crucial relationship. But once that first fallout or disagreement or lack of trust creeps in, is that the end of the road? Is that diving down?
So I'm going to draw back to that equity, like that reservoir of trust that you've built.
Yeah.
So I think if you've got, I think of it as like depositing money in the bank. If you've put down loads of deposits, you've done loads of good, you've earned that trust over and over again. You've proven athlete-centered, all of that, and then you do have a big fallout. I'd like to think that it's a recoverable relationship because you've got a lot of history to prove your intentions and that. I think if you haven't built that and then you have a big fallout, I think you're in tricky grounds. But let's be honest, context is king here. It depends on the nature of the fallout, doesn't it?
Yeah, of course. Another expansive question.
Yeah,
isn't
is it
Depends
like
on context, but
you had the best intentions and you made a bad decision? Because we all do that as coaches, and some of those bad decisions end up being, some of them end up being nothing. Like, it really doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And some of those end up being like pretty significant, and they hurt the athlete, not physically, but they can damage their pathway or delay them or whatever that might be. Let's say that you forgot to put a skill into a routine. We've all done that. They missed the requirement. Now, for some kids, it doesn't make a difference. They got through, they passed the grade, and then another kid, actually, it means that they completely missed out and they won't get another chance. And now it's like, okay, actually, I messed that one up.
big
So
that was on me.
I think we're going to make those decisions which impact them. How much of that has been built? So that's one example. But then if you, through really bad intent, had done something, then I think that's going to be much harder to recover from, right? It comes. I think intent is key.
I've never met a coach that has had the intent to do something on purpose.
Yeah.
Same.
Yet, if that's the interpretation of the parent and they don't want to shift on that,
well,
then
that's it,
then it's brick wall, isn't it?
I think it's on a scale. Yeah, I think
Well, it was down
there's
to
a good
your
chunk,
individual,
and then
doesn't it? And
once it's broken down to a certain point, I think you are looking at red zone. It's like a relationship with a coach. Like, I've had them where sometimes it has just got to a point where it's like, maybe we're just, it's not, like, we can't keep going back to this. Yeah.
It's a realm that really does need some work, education, because
Patience.
coaches are terrified at the moment, I feel, having spoken to a lot of people and done some work in the area, of what, I don't like the term, but I can't think of a better one for it, but the power a parent holds on your career path based on what they might say. And they might not even know what they're saying could be a detriment to you as a coach or your career. However, it's an area that needs a lot of work to build the trust and continue to mend relations and ultimately open it up so it's a more comfortable zone to correlate.
This, I believe, all of this is like a full-time role.
Yes.
yeah.
So the frequency of conversation, the depth of conversation, giving people genuine, authentic time, getting your clarity, your mission, making sure that all your coaching team is also in alignment with this. Creating a culture is one thing, like maintaining it is another. Again, you guys are in the clubs like more than me. So like, this is your, like, you know this world more than I do. Obviously I've got the clients that we're talking about this constantly, but it's a full-time job. And unless you are invested or someone is invested in managing all those relationships and sorting all that out.
I've come to the terms I've come to terms with the fact that I feel you need a gym manager that just manages the gym. They don't have any time coaching. They're in the office. They're there to help support
I'd agree
you.
with that.
They can be there either with you in the meetings, or they have the first couple of meetings on your behalf of the information that you've given. And then when you need it to be pulled in, you can be pulled in. Otherwise, like you say, you're in, you're out.
Coaches aren't coaching.
Yeah, exactly. And that's ultimately, I'm not trained to be a manager. My managerial skills come from years in the sport, being a people person, and just
experiential learning.
CPD that you've done as well.
Exactly that.
You've seen it in other sports, aren't you? Bleed over as well. So like a big trend in football at the moment where they're creating these, like, I think they call them like technical directors. And the idea is basically they are taking the roles away from managers that are driving them away from coaching. So they're doing the things that the managers used to be doing,
right,
in order to allow the manager to manage.
Okay.
And it's probably like that's what you're talking about with maybe like that general manager approach of like, that person allows the head coach to be coaching a little bit more until required, and then it's stepping into a meeting. So yeah, I think you guys are onto something.
And eliminating distractions is really important for a high performing gym.
Yeah.
Distractions such as like meetings taking place in coaching time.
Yeah.
Parents wanting to chat, staff meeting, whatever that might be. And what you tend to find in high performing environments is it's a distraction free zone. Like no one, within reason, you're not on your phones, you're not having meetings and conversations, you're not got like managers coming in asking the coaches for stuff. They can go back to reception. It's like coaches are left to coaching in the same way that you've just said managers are managing.
Yeah, everything's pre-planned.
It's pre-planned, but and again, this is a lot of the work that I do with my clients and inner circle members is, you give people the best, most effective ways of communicating with you as an organisation. So you're not saying I'm not available.
Yeah,
you're saying I'd love to chat to you, and this is a really important conversation for me. Obviously, I'm coaching at the moment, so here's my diary. A link to an online diary where you book a 15-minute slot, and it's like you make yourself available at a time which works for the club, but you don't say I'm not able to chat to you. Then again, you've now basically say, well, you're not important to me. I'm too busy. Can't do that. But parents should understand we've got a responsibility to keep kids safe. So if you're in a meeting. And you're a lead coach, or even if you're an assistant coach and you're helping with the ratios, you're taking someone who's responsible for the safety and welfare of children out of that environment to have a one-to-one meeting. Well, what about the 25 other kids that are there? You wouldn't do that to a teacher. You wouldn't say, right, see you later, everyone. We're just going to put someone else in here that doesn't know you or whatever that might be. And so it's all about balance. And I just think clarity. I've just ran the Gymnastics Leaders event, which was dedicated to compiling a world-class members handbook, which covers a lot of this, understanding your philosophies, your systems, your processes, your communication policies, because this is such a big area which determines the culture and the success of clubs. I think a lot of clubs fail in their performance goals as a result of not having some of this stuff in place. Nothing to do with teaching a double back. If the kids aren't in the gym because they've left and gone elsewhere, then what good is your amazing drills and program that you've developed when your most talented kids have gone elsewhere, or your foundation or whatever don't even exist? It's why do not many clubs do it? It's time consuming and it's a distraction from coaching.
It's hard, very difficult.
Really, really tough.
And in all fairness, probably fair to say up until maybe the last 5-10 years, parents were probably a little bit happier to drop kids at the door and just let them do their session. But again, not going to put it all on social media, but
things have changed.
Kids want to have content. Parents are seeing their children do more rather than not being at it. Gyms have viewing areas. There's more of a connection that brings to that, and maybe that's accelerated faster than what we have done as an industry and a culture to be able to manage it, hence some of the explosions that have occurred.
So do you think as a result of more exposure to content, for example, it leads to more assumptions?
I mean, firsthand, I'd say yes. I've definitely had people say,
I see that.
I don't want to be that person, but we have seen so. They're
doing this down the road.
And I love the interaction. I love communicating. I love explaining or having a debate or getting into it. It's good, but when it gets to that point where I keep going back about trust, but when it creates mistrust, then that content, that viewing, that always being able to see it rather than just letting it be.
makes it tough.
Yep.
Tricky.
Yeah, the more exposure, the more time people spend watching, the more questions are going to be raised. The more assumptions will be made.
Which can be good.
And could be good, but it could also be misleading and create some issues. So
I think my philosophy aligns with yours that you've spoken about before, Nick, is that social media is good.
Yeah.
Inherently.
Absolutely.
But it can be really bad.
Yeah.
And it's like you can make your own algorithm. Like it goes off your preferences.
Sure, yeah.
So it doesn't have to be bad. It can be so motivational and inspirational. And
Absolutely.
I've got like a saved thing on my Instagram that is just full of gymnastics, like amazing. Yeah. But then it can be very dangerous as well.
Yeah.
And I had a 10-year-old in my gym recently come in and say, so-and-so from this club in England is doing this at the moment.
Right.
And I went, whoa. I'm going to stop you right there. Don't do that.
Yeah.
Please don't do that. Yeah. Because
And
that's
it's really hard for them to comprehend. I mean, when we grew up, as I mentioned previously in another episode, without social media. Like when we first started coaching, there was no comparisons that way.
Nothing.
We have to literally travel to the other side of the world in order to see this stuff. I mean, like that sounds bizarre. With the last generation that grew up without social media, which is absolutely bizarre.
Yeah.
So that 10-year-old was born into this world.
Yeah. I felt unbelievably grateful for that.
Our childhood was different.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
No,
she
it's
was,
definitely
like
interesting.
directly comparing herself. And she's phenomenal, by the way. Like, in no danger of not
It doesn't need to be
progressing
worried
at the
about their
moment.
self-esteem. And
Yeah.
So I worry about, or I think about, how can clubs help with the challenges that these kids have? Now, again, rightly or wrongly, if I was running a club, I wouldn't be posting videos of the kids on the platforms. So, like, let's say Instagram, I wouldn't take a video of a kid doing a giant for the first time and upload it onto the club's Instagram going, we've just, congratulations, Susie, for her first giant. For two different reasons. One, I don't like it creates problems in the sense of like, well, she did that skill, and so why wasn't she videoed and put on there? So you've got the whole favoritism thing, which is, valid in that case. Like you're throwing yourself into difficult water. And second, like I wouldn't want to encourage kids to need that in terms of boosting their self-esteem.
Yeah.
Like I want to really focus on like your journey of acquiring a skill because of the accomplishment, the hard work that you've put into it. I don't want this to be about you needing for that to be on Instagram. I don't want the parents to crave their child video going up on the club's Instagram platform. Now, what they do with their own Instagram is up to them. But as a club, I'm thinking like, well, what role can we play in developing the kids' self-esteem? And like let's post like the same actually about podium pictures. Like I don't know at a young age if I as a club would be going, well done to these kids for finishing first, second, and third, and a picture of them on the podium, because I don't want it to become about that for young ages.
I do share that a lot. However, what if that ends up being their only point of celebration?
Yeah, get it. Very valid.
Which I think should still be championed.
Okay, but does not putting it on social media stop them from celebrating?
No, absolutely not.
And I think that's, for me, again, just the not the hot water, just where I feel about it. And maybe it's easy for me to say because I'm not in your situation of running a club with the characters and the personalities you got to manage and things, or expectations. But I wouldn't want the social media bit to be
the focus.
The focus.
Like part of.
We're going to celebrate regardless of whether a photo goes anywhere or not.
Wouldn't it be great if that was just celebrated in the gym? As in, your driver for doing what you do is because you celebrate it with the team.
But the sad thing is that has changed. That
in that moment.
Definitely has changed.
My question would be, what would you then do for content? Because it is, if you're running a gym club, like that's how you almost advertise your business. It's where a lot of your content-wise, what would you then?
I'd still have training shots and things, but it wouldn't be like, well done to this person for doing this. It might be like a little montage of
maybe more general,
just like not skill specific, not one individual specific.
Just training performances. As opposed to
from the competition, it might not be about the podium, but it might be about like we're really proud of how our athletes represented themselves this weekend. So they're still there.
Full team shots.
We're still celebrating, but it's not a case of like this is all about the medals. And maybe that makes no difference whatsoever. But for me, I've obviously got a real passion about making sure that we keep as many young athletes in the sport as possible. And I just think a lot of the barriers is the obsession around performance at that young age.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
And it's not it is about performance, and it's totally not at the same time. Like there's a threshold, which we've talked about in previous episodes.
There's a lot to be said for celebrating the little wins as well, right?
Celebrating the little wins. But does that need to be on social?
Yeah, and probably not, because the little wins are just so simple, but if you're doing them regularly, that's how you create momentum.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you look at Always try and draw from outside experience, right? So you look at other sports, if you watch a game of rugby, like they don't just celebrate like a try, they celebrate like the win of a scrum. But the reason for it looks over the top because you're getting 14 people running over to celebrate one person, but it creates momentum in training. And it's the same thing like if you watch a volleyball game, for example, same thing, like every shot, they're like high-fiving. It's a bit long, because you're celebrating every single shot of a game. But it's because it creates momentum. It's almost the same for training, isn't it? As if you come to training every day and we celebrate every little win that you do, the next day is going to be good. The next day is going to be good. You're going to feel enthused to come in. Like you said, it's something quite nice about just doing that with the team and not.
You've alluded to a really good point there as well for a gymnastics perspective. Later on in their career, you're not going to have daily wins, like big daily wins when they're trying to achieve a skill that is so technically difficult. You're talking months, sometimes years.
Years. Yeah.
So if you're not celebrating every day, well, that's tough.
And it's like, you have to catch something completely brand new in order to be celebrated, or is it that you haven't caught this for months and you somehow plucked up the courage today to do that?
There's an education piece behind that, and I had a moment. I was coaching a child not so long ago, and the obvious success in the session was you were going to go for this particular release.
Love it.
For whatever the reason, tired, been on holiday. This kid wasn't from our gym club. She couldn't bring herself to do the element. But for the 20, 30 minutes we were on that piece of apparatus, we communicated her determination to want to do it, her effort and bravery to get up and consider doing it, her perseverance, the emotional control. There were so many other things that were fantastic in that. But you wouldn't be able to pick that up on a camera.
So much
you
to
wouldn't be able to
applaud
celebrate
in
that. And I remember wherever we were, I gave her an award for that. She's like,
Love it.
But I haven't done gymnastics. Like, but you're not getting it. This isn't a moment for gymnastics. This is a moment for all the things around it that will make your gymnastics better.
Love that.
But trying to capitalise on that and trying to create that as a
thing.
piece, a thing, it's hard. It's really tricky.
If you can zone in on whatever that is.
Really tricky.
I do feel slightly different about the topic I've mentioned for older athletes. So like podium picks and things. I think it comes back to when's an athlete and when are they elite. Because I do think that once you bridge a certain gap, it's about performance now and results. You're hungry for results and you are chasing specific results. So it's like there's an element of maturity in the gymnastics, in which case, like, right, we're going after this now. You've been selected, congratulations, or you've won a medal. Let's celebrate that. Let's publicise that. It's more about what's happening at that bottom end for me. That I think is where we need to be careful of and just sort of
hopefully
channeling.
that result was the culmination of all of these amazing little things that you did. Which we celebrated.
Definitely.
Yeah, we wouldn't have got here without those.
There's a lot of theories, isn't there, around motivation, and there's all the science, of course, the conversation around intrinsic, extrinsic motivation. And I think this is another really difficult area for coaches because we know that we shouldn't be extrinsically motivating the athletes, or at least that's what we're told. Do it for them, do it intrinsically, don't dangle the carrot, etc., etc. I think we've all been in that situation where you've been coaching a kid on something for weeks and weeks and weeks, and you've exhausted absolutely every option. You've done every drill, you've done every prep, you've brought in other coaches, and literally the next thing you say is, if you do this, I will give you this. It could be, I've heard coaches give them a pizza, a toy. There's all sorts of different things, right? And then all of a sudden, on the next rep, bam. And in those situations, you can't help but be frustrated with the fact that we're trying our hardest to do this the correct way. And we've tried for months, we've done absolutely everything, and for some reason that extrinsic reward is
in that moment, is that not the right way? Because it's not permanently been extrinsic or bribed or carroted. Carroted, carrot or stick type thing. Carroted.
You can make up words.
But in that moment, if that's got them to get over the hump or the other side where they need to be, then it's the maintenance of the other side without the...
So when is it too early or too much?
Well, next time you might not do it at all. Next time you might just say, at this point, I think you're almost not doing it for the sake of not doing it, maybe. I'm not saying that you are, but just catch it, or there's nothing else technical that I can give you at this point.
Yeah, you got to get it done.
But I'm also not do you want to do it? I'm going to bribe you.
Yeah.
Maybe bribe's not the right word, but that's quite literally what you do.
It's an
with
ethical bribe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So no, at this point.
Because we know that stickers are very effective with younger kids, but we're also taught that using stickers is an external reward, and then we've got to chat is that the way to go?
But
is that going to help
seniors
build?
love stickers as well, by the way. They love stickers.
You do cross lines there because we talk about what's parenting and what's coaching.
Yeah.
And for me, in some of those areas, some of those are blurred because if that's not being taught at home or that behaviour of, the extrinsic motivation and don't do it for reward, then it's not going to correlate into the gym anyway.
Yeah.
You can help, but how old does a kid need to be if they're not experiencing that outside of the gym to start getting that? It becomes really, really tricky. You can only do what you think is right, and you can only do what's best and fits within your gym setup and things. So
it's knowing your athlete again, doesn't it? We've got some gymnasts that are just offended at the idea of a sticker being the reason that we celebrate what you did today, and others are like, give me the sticker now.
I need that sticker.
I swear.
Right now.
Yeah.
So strange.
I popped into a gym the other day, and in the 10, 15 minutes I was there, working this group of tiny little development kids, and just by talking to them, as they were going around the things, I'd picked up on their characters and who was what. You could work out that kid's going to do this because they want the cuddly toy at the end of the session they get to keep for a week. But then there's a kid over there that actually just wants a little bit of attention and a conversation, and that's going to give her what she needs to feel comfortable in that session, as opposed to the other kid that just wants to be rewarded with, I've done so well. You've pointed your toes when they've not been pulled for a game. And that's all they needed. You can pick up on those things if you're prepared to spend a bit of time to work that out, and then you can do that alongside everything else. I think the easy thing to do is stick a chart. Stick a chart. Okay. Gymnast of the month at the end of it,
It loses effectiveness.
But they look like the right things to do. But it's the bits within those sessions that are going to create that value over time.
Praise as well as the public praise, which I think can be both equally as effective as each other, but only if you're doing both. Because otherwise it loses its effectiveness.
It saddens me that the praise in private, I feel, isn't valued as much by some of the individuals as it once was or could be or should be because of what they get from the social media or the posts or the likes. It's almost like it saddens me because I get goosebumps when I talk about it because I give as much of myself as I can to an individual in a conversation that if I think they need that sort of motivation, and you think it's hit home, but then maybe the next conversation but did you see how many likes I got? And you just think, has that gone in, stayed where it needs to, or got to revisit again, again. But then, like I say, it's not an issue. But when you're giving, not just, we touched on it earlier, not just telling, but when you're giving, how much can you keep giving? Keep giving until it's not being received, or you just know it's not working.
I think it's like an evolution as well, like you're saying, like with the sticker things, eventually it runs out. It's also like you're saying, like if you're constantly doing it, but then those little gymnasts are going to become a bit bigger, and have you taken the time to understand exactly who they are? So when they are 16, 17, 18, and then like having worked with athletes that are older as well, it's like they're not bothered about stickers or cuddly toys. They're just not. Some might be. But it's like, as well as all of that early time, have we figured out that like those small conversations, like what actually is driving you? Do you just love praise, or are you like a bit of a technician where you just love it if you just do something right for yourself? Or are you someone that needs like a massive applause or a pylon or whatever it may have to be? And like that's the bit of coaching that I think I get more and more interested in as time goes by now. I think of like just like trying to figure them out and get on their level, and what drives you to want to do this and stuff. Because I think without it, you struggle a bit.
One of the biggest risks, I remember GymCon years ago, you might remember this, I think you might have been in the room as well. There was a screenshot I put up on the screen. It was someone had commented on my Instagram, a gymnast that literally said, my mum said that if I do this, I can get a puppy. And I think that's what we've got to be careful of, isn't it, as well, of course, which is that in that instance, that kid's success measure was basically, or the feeling of my mum loves me is down to, did she stay on beam? I think that's what it was. If I stay on the beam at the next competition, I get a puppy. So it's almost like their love
Yeah.
is being like, I love you lots, you stayed on the beam, and now I'm going to punish you because you didn't. And I think
Again, I can't speak too much on the matter because I'm not a parent myself, but some parents won't know that they're even doing wrong by saying those things. And we've had situations in the gym where we've thought, wow, we've had a chat with so-and-so, and oh my goodness, these last 3 weeks, she's been on fire. That really hit a chord.
Yeah.
And then found out that there's been some reward offered, couple of leotards if you get brave at doing this. So it's not actually an aspiration to want to be brave.
Yeah.
It's a want to get 2 new leotards. So once they're got, they're not brave at the skill. The skill's still where it was. The intrinsic thing's gone.
Yeah.
Some parents just might not know any better.
It's like a mistake, isn't it? It's like almost like what we were saying at the beginning, wasn't it? Of like, we're making mistakes along the way. You guys are making mistakes along the way, but we're only looking at the mistakes the other people are making rather than going like, oh my God, we're all making these mistakes along the way. And if we did, actually, if I made a couple less and you're a bit more forgiving and you made a couple less, we'd actually probably bumble our way along to actually an easier time, a better relationship together.
It's difficult to use that as a lesson as well, because they're not upset that they fell off the beam. They're upset because they didn't get their puppy.
You'd be fuming, and I can't
use that.
You'd be hard. I'd be pretty fuming if I fell off
I'd be
the beam.
gutted.
But one of the real difficult things is when, so let's say they do stay on the beam, they do get the puppy, and in the parent's eyes, it's worked.
Yeah. Oh God, yeah.
So like,
I need to now up the ante again.
as I said, like the pizza might work, the sticker might work. So because it works, people might opt for it, or because you don't offer that carrot in the future, the kid's like, well,
Why would
no
I
chance of me
bother?
doing it now,
Yeah.
or someone else.
Yeah, no deal.
What,
Getting anything from it.
What am I getting back in return? It's like, well, you're going to get the accomplishment of skill.
Yeah, it sounds boring.
I want a pizza.
How about another dog?
Yeah, I want a dog.
I want a pack of dogs by the end of the
another
We've only
dog
got
for
2
the dog.
puppies so far. I want at least 2 more. Yeah.
That's it.
That's
Well,
tough.
as always, interesting conversations which are probably going to be thought-provoking for the audience as well. We don't have the answers. We're just here to talk about it and to share some different ideas. But thanks, gents, for a good conversation again. And I've really enjoyed it.
Thank you very
Look
much.
forward to the next one.
Thanks so much for listening to this episode of the Gymnastics Growth Show. Now, if you're an ambitious gymnastics coach with a hunger for self-improvement, check out my Gymnastics Growth Academy, where you'll find members from over 40 countries, all accessing my masterclasses, courses, templates, live community calls, exercise libraries, and so much more. It's a program that members have described as life-changing. So why don't you check it out for yourself? Head to gymnasticsgrowth.com to learn more. See you on the inside.